Why Starfleet didn't remake Discovery's Spore Drive in Star Trek, the original series, and TNG Starfleet did not attempt to remake Star Trek, Discovery's Spore Drive in Star Trek, the original series, or Star Trek, The Next Generation's eras. Star Trek Discovery Season 1, which was set in 2256 to 2257, introduced the displacement-activated Spore Hub Drive, or Spore Drive for short. Discovery's revolutionary Spore Drive was the series' big idea, which was a significant leap forward as a Star Trek technology. The Spore Drive allowed the USS Discovery to instantaneously travel through the mycelial network so that the starship essentially teleports to its destination. But why did Starfleet limit the Spore Drive to the USS Discovery? Star Trek Discovery's Spore Drive was controversial because it was canon-breaking technology far more advanced than anything seen in Star Trek, the original series, which takes place a decade later. Nor is a Spore Drive an instantaneous starship teleportation seen in Star Trek, The Next Generation's 24th century era. Star Trek Discovery Season 2 solved these grievances by making the Spore Drive part of an overall crisis surrounding the very existence of the USS Discovery. After Discovery merged with a 100,000-year-old sphere and its data was uploaded into Disco's computers, the starship became the target of a rogue AI called Control. With the sphere data, Control could become fully sentient and wipe out all organic life in the galaxy. Discovery's Spore Drive technology was a closely guarded secret within Starfleet. At the end of Star Trek Discovery Season 2, the combined forces of the USS Discovery, the USS Enterprise, and their allies, including the Kelpians, destroyed Control Section 31's Genocidal Threat Assessment AI. However, in order to prevent another Control from becoming online and sentient, Discovery, its sphere data, and its Spore Drive had to be removed from the 23rd century. To safeguard the galaxy, Commander Michael Burnham, Sonequa Martin Green, led the USS Discovery on a permanent one-way trip 930 years into the 32nd century. In the real world, this was also Star Trek Discovery's solution to the problem of the starship being too technologically advanced for Star Trek's 23rd century. In the distant future, Discovery could set Star Trek canon instead of defy it. Once the USS Discovery was no longer in the 23rd century, Captain Christopher Pike, Anson Mount, and Lieutenant Spock, Ethan Peck, of the USS Enterprise, reported to Starfleet that Discovery was destroyed and all hands lost. Further, Spock redacted the USS Discovery from Starfleet records to protect Michael Burnham, his adopted sister. The USS Discovery's Spore Drive technology was redacted along with the starship's records so that Starfleet could not build another. As time passed and Starfleet continued to rely on standard warp drive, knowledge of the USS Discovery and its Spore Drive was simply forgotten by the 24th century. The USS Discovery's Spore Displacement Hub Drive was also dangerous technology that required a specialized navigator for it to work. In Star Trek Discovery Season 1, 2 Crossfield-class starships experimented with Spore Drive technology. The USS Glenn attempted a Spore Drive jump through the mycelial network that killed everyone aboard. However, the Glenn had a giant tardigrade that was brought aboard the USS Discovery, and the crew soon deduced that the tardigrade, named Ripper, could serve as the Spore Drive's navigator. Unfortunately, the tardigrade was debilitated by interfacing with the Spore Drive, so Discovery's crew released it back into space. In the Star Trek universe, the Spore Drive, introduced in Star Trek Discovery, represents one of the most revolutionary technologies ever seen. It allows for instantaneous travel across vast distances in space by tapping into the mycelial network, an organic web that connects the entire universe. This technology is such a game-changer that fans often wonder why Starfleet didn't replicate it in later series like Star Trek, the original series, TOS, or Star Trek, The Next Generation, TNG. Given the transformative potential of the Spore Drive, the absence of any reference to it in the more chronologically advanced series invites exploration. There are several compelling reasons, both in universe and from a storytelling perspective, why the Spore Drive was not remade in the Star Trek timeline beyond Discovery. In universe explanations, ethical, technical, and logistical barriers 1. Ethical concerns and the impact on life forms. The Spore Drive is powered by the mycelial network, a vast interdimensional web that permeates the universe. Early in Star Trek Discovery, it becomes clear that the use of the Spore Drive has significant consequences for the mycelial network and the life forms that reside within it. Stamets, the chief engineer who operates the drive, realizes that exploiting the network for instantaneous travel threatens to destabilize it and even damage the ecosystem that exists there. From an ethical standpoint, continuing to use the Spore Drive poses moral dilemmas for Starfleet, which is bound by a commitment to the protection of life, even at great distances. In later episodes of Discovery, it becomes clear that excessive use of the Spore Drive could have devastating consequences not just for the mycelial network, but for all life in the galaxy. Starfleet, a deeply principled organization, would have weighed the ethical cost of such a technology and likely determined that the potential for harm far outweighed the benefits of its continued use. 2. The dependency on Ripper and unique operators. The original operation of the Spore Drive was dependent on a unique life form known as Ripper, a giant tardigrade-like creature that had a natural connection to the mycelial network. While Ripper was eventually replaced by Lieutenant Stamets, who underwent genetic modification to link to the network, this solution presents its own challenges. Stamets himself is a one-of-a-kind operator, having been genetically enhanced to access the network after injecting himself with tardigrade DNA. It is implied throughout Discovery that not just anyone can control or interact with the mycelial network in the same way. The reliance on such rare and potentially dangerous genetic modifications would limit Starfleet's ability to widely adopt the Spore Drive technology. Creating a fleet of ships capable of using the Spore Drive would require many more individuals like Stamets, and genetic engineering is heavily regulated within the Federation, especially after the eugenics wars. The Federation's aversion to genetic modification, coupled with the scarcity of qualified operators, would prevent Starfleet from widely replicating the Spore Drive for future use. 3. The strategic risks. If the Spore Drive were widely adopted, it would not only provide Starfleet with a tactical advantage, but also present a considerable risk. In Discovery, the USS Discovery is the only ship equipped with this technology, and its use becomes a tightly guarded secret. Instantaneous travel could disrupt the delicate balance of power in the galaxy. If the technology were to fall into the wrong hands, such as the Klingons, Romulans, or even a renegade faction within the Federation, it could lead to widespread destabilization and warfare. This strategic risk might have led Starfleet to conclude that the Spore Drive, while powerful, was too dangerous to mass-produce or disseminate widely. The balance of power, both within the Federation and with other interstellar powers, might have been a major reason Starfleet chose to discontinue the development of this technology. Keeping it classified and dormant would have been the safest way to ensure that it would not become a weapon or a tool for nefarious purposes. Storytelling and canon constraints. 1. The challenge of retconning advanced technology. One of the primary reasons the Spore Drive does not appear in the original series, or the Next Generation, lies in the real-world constraints of storytelling and canon. Star Trek Discovery was developed decades after the original series in TNG, and its advanced technology reflects modern science fiction sensibilities. The Spore Drive represents an effort to introduce something novel to the franchise that could still operate within the framework of Star Trek's exploratory ethos. However, the introduction of such a powerful and far-reaching technology poses significant canon issues. If the Spore Drive existed in the timeline,